Born free as the wind blows, as free as the grass grows, born free to follow your heart.
We've talked about movies that, you know, crack you up laughing. We've talked about movies that scare the shit out of you. But have we ever talked about a movie that makes you cry? Because Born Free is the only movie that ever made me cry. Now, I mean, it wasn't like wailing, but this was, you know, legitimately gave me tears. As a kid, I saw this as a kid, and then again as an adult, and it still had the same emotional impact. Mm-hmm. And I saw it for my third time for this. I think now it finally kind of wore off because I was, you know, I had too many things on my mind and I was preparing the notes for this. But I can definitely vouch that this is a movie that has these complicated emotions where it's not like you're crying because you're sad. It's kind of like a happy cry. It's, you know what I mean?
It has some really emotional moments in it, and I can understand, I could definitely see why it would cause a tear to be shed. I was getting pretty close. I don't cry at very many movies. I've only cried at a few. Like 3 that I can think of. And they're all kind of dumb, to be honest. Like, I mean, the most recent one, and I didn't cry, I wasn't like bawling either. It was like a tear comes out, but I would say Endgame.
I remember that because I was there when you, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We all watched it. I forgot, yeah. But when, you know, when what happens at the end happens, that whole ending sequence got me pretty misty. And then the other 2, one is RoboCop when he's walking through the house as RoboCop, and it's his old family, you know, his house, and he's having kind of the flashbacks of his wife and kid, and they play the sad RoboCop theme. That part, like, I don't know what it was, but that part really hit me. And the last one that made me cry was Terminator 2.
Oh, at the end, yeah.
When I was a kid, when they lower him into the molten steel, that part, when I was a kid, that broke my heart.
This movie, I think, yeah, Born Free is the most I ever teared up from a movie. And I even brought it up to a counselor once as a kid. I mean, it wasn't the reason I was there, but, you know, I would have my weekly, you know, meeting with the counselor. And then, you know, she said, so, you know, how you been doing this past week? Like, you know, what happened? And I didn't really have much that week. And I was like, yeah, well, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this movie I saw, Born Free. And I'm just like, I just keep like tearing up over it. And she's like, oh yeah, that movie. Yeah, I cried because of that too. And by the way, you know, I'm really glad we're doing this one because at first I was like, you know, would Born Free be a good pick for rental reviews? Like, I'm not sure. But Tiger King is really popular right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a crazy show. I mean, totally different.
Tiger King is the exact opposite of what Born Free is, like, to an insane degree.
I'm as gay as a $3 bill, and I'm standing in a cage with 5 full-grown tigers and lions. I've had some kinky sex. I have tried drugs through the younger years of my life. I am broke as shit. Ow, son of a bitch.
Well, I guess let's just go into the story, I guess. So it's based on a real story of this couple, the Adamsons, Joy and George. And George is like a hunter who is basically hired to deal with lions that are causing a lot of trouble.
Yeah, dangerous animals in Africa. He's the game warden.
Okay, yeah.
So he's kind of like if an animal is killing people or destroying crops or something like that, he goes in. He's basically like animal control in Africa.
Yeah, and this is all a real story. Like, this is all true. And Joy wrote the book. I'm pretty sure Joy wrote it. And it was basically like there was a series of books. There was Born Free, Living Free, and then Forever Free. And then they made the movie off of it. So basically this is just the movie we're talking about today. So George gets wind of this lion that's going around killing a bunch of people in Kenya. And he goes out to hunt this lion. And he shoots it, but he also ends up shooting the mate.
I'm gonna shoot you right between the fucking eyes, bitch.
he ends up having to shoot both of them and then realize that they left all these cubs behind. And there's like 3 cubs, and then they take them back and they like try to feed them, which is tough in itself because they're used to being fed by their mother. But basically, like, the idea is that this couple, the Adamsons, they feel responsible for what happened. They want to, you know, raise these cubs. And then when they start to grow up a little bit, when they get bigger, they're so playful and so cute, and you just fall in love with them.
Yeah. I love that they play with that with Patty, the rock Hyrax or whatever it was. She's like a weird groundhog kind of thing. And they were like buddies, kind of. Like at first, they, you know, before they get a little too big to where they might hurt her. But and that's the thing too. This movie starts off with kind of like heartbreak because, you know, when she gets the lion cubs, Patty is kind of an older animal, but it's her pet that hangs out with her all the time, and it ends up passing away because it's just old. She's just gotten so old and everything. And then the lions kind of, I keep saying tigers because of Tiger King, but they're lions. But the lions kind of fill the, you know, her instead of it being them being a pet, it's more like she is their mother. She's, you know, really takes care of this lion, Elsa.
Elsa's her favorite one, yeah, of the 3. Like, for some reason, she has this attachment to Elsa more so than the other 2. But just watching the 3 of them play together, like, you know, you have cats too. Like, you know how cats fight? Like, they just...
I have actually, when I was watching this movie, the way they were in the house, that's how my cats are. Because I have 3. And they're much smaller. They're, you know, even as at cub size, they're bigger than all 3 of my cats are. That one of those cubs probably weighs as much as all 3 of my cats put together.
Yeah, because these lions, they are just destroying stuff in the house, but they're playful. They're like, yeah. But the only frame of reference that, you know, we have is owning cats. You know, never having had a lion in the house. It's like you can just imagine how many more times crazier that is.
Yeah,
these lions, and the fact that they keep getting bigger and bigger so fast. So eventually it gets to the point where they have to figure out what to do with them. So they take him to a zoo, and, you know, Joy is really sad about it. She doesn't want to see him go, but it's just it's what they have to do, because they can't just keep him in their home. But she ends up keeping Elsa. So by that point, you know, Elsa grows into a huge lioness and is just like a member of the family. But then the trouble starts when Elsa causes a elephant stampede.
Yep.
And then basically it forces them into a situation where they have to give her away to the zoo. But then she decides, well, the only other option is to set her free because she belongs in the wild. But because she didn't have her mother to, you know, to train her like how to hunt and everything, that couldn't be done. And the
yeah, she's too tame to really survive anywhere other than in their care. But she's also becoming dangerous, you know, because she is a wild animal, even though she's tamed. But it's kind of like, it's not like a cat where my cats are indoors all the time. They never go outside. But you can't do that with a lion.
Yeah, because they basically have like this yard. I mean, they're like situated out in like the wilderness, but they have this big area where they just let Elsa roam. But because it starts causing all the trouble, then, you know, yeah, she has to give her away. But she begs to the their boss or the zookeeper guy that, you know, just give me 3 months and I'll try to train her back into the wild. And they already tell her straight out, they're like, nobody's ever trained a lion back into the wild. Like, it's just impossible. But go ahead and try it and, you know, see what happens. And the line that stuck out to me, she says, she's born free, she's meant to live free. And I remember it's like one of those moments where when you watch a movie and the title comes out and you're like, oh, there it is. But it's done in the best way.
Yeah, it's not cheesy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's just like she's fighting for the freedom of her lion. So anyway, that's where things get really complicated, because to train her, they have to do all these like terrible things. They have to like starve her and then put her out.
Yeah, which that was probably the hardest part. I think for me watching it is when they just leave her out there for I think like a week and it's raining and everything and they go and they find her and she's all like messed up.
Yeah, like she got into a fight with another animal or something. She's all wounded and like
I felt so bad about that part. It just was like really, because that's the thing, like I had where, you know, one time my cat, he scratched himself one time because he got a mosquito bite or something, and he scratched himself to the point where he actually was bleeding a little bit, and I almost cried at that. And that was just nothing, you know, but this is like, because cats kind of can be dumb or whatever, but I can't imagine, like, you know, having to do that to one of my poor babies or something, you know, leaving them out in the wilderness.
Yeah, and it's all to try and get her to, like, where she's starving, she has to hunt for the food. She has to do it. So and that's where the movie gets really sad. Like, that's actually like the saddest part probably, because then when George berates her and like just calls her cruel and is like, you know, I can't believe that, you know, you did this to her, and you know, she's crying, and it also makes you think about like, wow, like this type of movie, like how hard was it to film with all these lions?
Yeah, it must have been. Honestly, too, that's the thing. When I was watching this isn't, you know, there's no CG. This is all real. They filmed these lions amongst people. We kept actually making jokes about it. We were like, oh, did they get those lions from Dr. Bhagavan Antle or did they get them from Joe Exotic? Having to be in that role, and I think the two people who play the main characters, they're actually married in real life. But that must have been just something else, like having to, you know, they filmed this in Africa, I believe. I'm pretty sure they did. It seemed, and they had these real animals that were just completely well trained, and they're running around. They're running around. The scene with the elephants. They're charging the camera crew. Like, they filmed these elephants coming at them, and you can even tell because you start seeing the camera moving away as if like, to, you know, these people were in danger. This is not, this is all real. Yeah,
it almost has a documentary look sometimes. Like, you're just like, wow, this just looks like they just filmed it and it happened. Like, you forget you're watching a movie. You're like, this is just, I mean, because it is based on a real story. And as much as like there's all these documentaries about, I haven't seen many of them, but there's documentaries about the real story, but I haven't seen anything of behind the scenes footage. I mean, I haven't looked, but that's what I'd like to look into next, is like, just how did they make this movie? How did they like get the lions to like act on command? And like the scene that we were just talking about, like when Elsa's wounded, I looked at it more closely this time and I'm like, okay, I can kind of see what they did. Like, they just put some makeup or whatever on the lion.
Yeah.
And because it's all in the music and the way they shot it. There is one part where she kind of has a little bit of like a limp kind of, but I'm not sure what they did with that. And you know, you would hope they didn't harm any of the lions in this movie, and I don't think they did.
I don't think they did. Honestly, the one thing was too, the actors actually went on. I believe like this movie, them making this movie changed their lives, and they ended up making a like a foundation, a charity foundation, and everything about it. Because that's one thing, I don't know what it is. I've never really seen lions or tigers or anything outside of a zoo. I've never been up close, but these big cats seem to just change people. You know, they just somehow, whatever it is. Because the funny thing is, man, even though they're these dangerous beasts and they're giant, they're still cats. They act like house cats, just on a way larger scale. All the things they do, you know, big cats purr. They play the same way any normal, the regular house cat does. It's just crazy to see that these...
They like flip on their back and then, you know, just, it's the same thing, yeah, but just bigger.
Yeah, basically, and way more dangerous. I mean, I get sliced up from my cats because they, you know, if I'm playing with them or whatever, and you know, all my cats have their claws and they're sharp, and they do not, like, I try to cut them every once in a while just to trim them a bit, but it's something that I have to do over the course of like a week and a half, because I'll get one or two claws here and there and then I can't get them again.
If I ever found myself next to a lion or a tiger, I think I would just feel like a mouse. Yeah. Like, I'd be like, fuck,
because they're huge. They're bigger than we are. They're about, you know, they weigh more than any of us. They're probably literally like the two of us combined probably don't even make up a full lion.
Yeah, so anyway, that was the low point of the movie. That's where it's like everything's going as wrong as possible. But then it gets so uplifting after that. So then they finally are able to like get her to like attack a war dog. It's like on their last day. It's like their last try or whatever. And then she chases after this war dog. It's almost like this Rocky montage kind of thing where it's building up to it and you're like, yeah, it's going to happen. And then she ends up becoming acclimated to the wild again. And then George, who was like berating his wife about it before calling her cruel, now he's like, he's impressed and he says, you've done something no one else has ever done.
Yeah, and which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, and like I always remember that line too, like you've done something no one else has ever done, because isn't that like always the goal is to do something unique that nobody's done? So
I like too that she does get that warthog, especially after that one warthog was such a dick to her, where the one warthog just keeps beating into her, like pushing her and shit.
How'd they film that? Like, how'd they film they just let it happen, or like?
I have no idea. That's what we were saying is like, how did they get a lion to sit there and let a warthog punch it a bunch of times or whatever? And then I was saying too, like when she finally kills it, she's like, hey asshole, remember me, buddy? And he's like, oh please, no, I'm sorry, I was just joking. She just tears him apart.
Unbelievable, yeah. It's like the rematch, like you want to see, you know, yeah. So anyway, that happens, and then you know they let her go, and this is the end of the movie where they let her back into the wild, and that's sad. I mean, it's sad, but it's happy because you know they succeeded, and now she's free and she's wild. And then the final scene in the movie, they go back into the wild to find her again, just to see if they could, you know, reunite. Mm-hmm. And in all likelihood, the lion wouldn't remember them, but they actually find her, and she remembers them. Yeah. And now I'm starting to like tear up again just thinking about the scene when they actually find her, and there she is with like a bunch of cubs of her own.
Yeah.
And she remembers them, and you know, she like nuzzles with them or whatever, and then, you know, she's in there and you know, Joy's like hugging Elsa, and she's got the cubs, and then the music comes on, that song, Born Free.
Born free as the wind blows, as free as the grass grows, born free to follow your heart.
Which won an award. I think it won like a Grammy or something. And that's where I cried as a kid. Like when the way that movie leaves you, it's just like, you're like happy, but you don't really know how you feel. It's so complicated.
No, I especially too, like, I mean, as people who own cats and I love animals. I'm like a real, I'm a sucker for animals, man. Like I really am. And this movie definitely, you know, when I started watching it, and that's how everybody told me, is like, they were like, yeah, James said this is the only movie that ever made him cry before. And as I'm watching, I'm like, yeah, I definitely see why. This is, it's not tough to watch it. It's just a movie that, like, when you watch it, it is overwhelming, and it's like a really emotional story, and it has like that happy ending still. It's not, it's like a different kind of happy ending where, you know, the main character leaves and goes on to become something better, but everybody, it all works out for everyone in the end, even all the you know, because they go through a lot of things. The husband gets malaria, then he gets addicted to the malaria pills. They have to get rid of the lion, and they don't know what to do. And that whole scene is, you know, that makes up a good, you know, third of the movie is them trying to train her back into the wild. When they finally get everything and it all comes together, it's just, you know, you feel like you really were there for it, you know?
It is. Like, I think it's one of the most well-done movies ever made. Like, considering the emotions it pulls out of you, how hard it must have been to make, and just like everything about it, I think it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. There was like some modern popularity of it on YouTube, like about like 10 years ago or so, with Christian the Lion, which was actually Christian the Lion. I think the same couple, the Adamsons, helped with that one to get Christian back into the wild, because by this point, I guess they were like, they were the experts on that. And Christian the Lion is the same situation. They went back out later to reunite, and that the lion remembered them.
Yeah.
And there's a YouTube video of like the lion that comes up, and at first you think that it's
like charging them, right?
Yeah, at first you think it's like charging them, but then it like jumps up like a, you know, like a playful...
Yeah, I've seen that video before. I was wondering about that, actually.
And they
I didn't
put
realize
that like
people.
Aerosmith song on it. And then, and just like to make you tear up. It's a separate lion, but it's still connected, like in story, because it's the same couple. And I think I don't think anybody knows what happened to Christian. Like they reunited a few times, but Elsa unfortunately didn't last too long after all this. Like she died because of like some kind of disease. Like I think it was a disease that came from like a tick bite or something like that. You'd want to double check that, but yeah. So Elsa didn't make it too much longer. There was a sequel. They made the movie Living Free, which was based on the third book, Forever Free. But yeah. So anyway, that's all I got. You got anything else?
No, I mean honestly, thanks for I guess introducing this movie to me. I never would have seen this movie probably if you didn't tell me about it. And I loved it. I had a great time watching it.
Oh, cool! Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. To Elsa.
Yes, to Elsa. Hold on, I have an iced coffee ice cube thing. To Elsa.
Oh yeah. So for our next episode, talking about somebody who's living free, we got Dennis the Menace.
Oh.